and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. So hello there and welcome to this video today with me, which is going to be another video on the topic of Illumined Union. So we've been through so much, those of you on this path who have a deep understanding of what this truly means and what are the accompanying initiations we somehow have to go through, because it is or it isn't. You probably have gone into this almost like inner submersive feelings that starting to arise, because the deeper we go, sometimes it feels like it's getting worse, because we're being faced with certain things we truly need to assimilate on this level of our human experience, companionship, and of course the embodiment of this state. So as many people would come to understand this journey of coming together of polarities in many ways, in different levels of awareness. The ultimate experience, as I've shared with you before, is the Illumined Union, and for me there is no other way. This is the ultimate, and it is the only truest union, because it's the union at the essence self level. So if you go one video back where I talked about what this means, and I think I've been reading to you one of the short channel messages about what does it truly mean to embody the level of the essence self, what are the initiations, and of course also responsibilities that come with that, because there's always responsibilities. We have this journey that is not just for ourselves, it becomes a gift to the whole, and because we're not just here in this awareness of, okay, we're here to assist others, it's still kind of based on separation. A complete union is a union that is informed from the level of the whole, which is you as the one loving the whole, and that love always being in equal reciprocity, dynamic exchange, and the mutual reception, which is truly the dynamic of Illumined Union. Of course, on our human path of going through many initiations, we won't always be at the clarity of understanding of such. So I want to go in this final video of this year regarding this beloved topic and the cosmic union and the cosmic beloved. I really want to talk about the most physical aspect, which is truly that descent of this liquid light of ours and being expressed in a humanly way. So we talk about a lot nowadays of this ultimate as the physical expression. And today, because of that, I want to talk about what is called or referred to as Hieros Gamos. And I've recently shared a dream experience I've had with my group on Instagram, and some people sometimes are not aware, and as many people understand those words, some people don't. And as I always tell you, the true level of being informed can come through the spirit initiation that you receive from within. So anything we go through, we're kind of gathering this mental understanding and knowledge as a preparation. But in the end, it's just a part of preparing the vessel for what's truly taking place. And in my videos, I've been always stressing the meaning and importance of personal experience, trying to gather the kind of information that would imply you as yourself choosing this path and knowing of that path being chosen through you. And of course, the things we need to go through for that embodiment to really be ripe in our earthly vessel. So as you know, there's a lot of us who carry the codes of this divine marriage as in memory, and we call it the memory or the experience of the higher realms and the potentiality that exists there. So as we have our human experience, we're not just here playing roles, we're not just reenacting something that we've already had before, because it's different. The level of human life, human biology, human terminology, and how life evolves within the human species is a unique nature, so the divine union and the nature of what truly Hieros Gamos means, which is divinity becoming flesh, and then that basic expression of what is the biggest metaphorical and of course also experiential level is when the two become one. So that's the first emphasis, because as creation moves out into existence, it also everything springs forth from that unity, from the wholeness, and it first develops as that polarity, which will create the diversity of the infinite laws of the many. So that's why, as humans, we have such a strong tendency to experience partnership and to come together and to experience love, to be loved in return. And this is like the seed of life that's implanted within us. So if you want to know more about the seed of life, I have a mini audiobook that talks about this as the cosmic orgasmic union and the seed of life, and what is implanted in the code for the seed of life as it's evolving, of course, also now in our human state. So for the human condition, how the seed of life was put into existence was, of course, because we have a body that's a biological unit here. So there is an understanding that the divine will penetrate the physicality, which means it will make love with our biology. So in a way, we are constantly, through experience that comes through our feelings, we're informing our higher selves, or the whole that exists within that formation, of what we truly need as we're here on earth. So that's more of a, it's like, it's not a hierarchical downwards upwards kind of journey. It's more like spiraling through the many realms and discovering and then applying how certain laws want to be known, of course, through the unity of divine love, and how that can be applied. So when we experience personal relationships, intimacy, even challenges within that, there are always frameworks to inform ourselves, to carry that information back into the big spiral of creation, and then pull that downwards as a descending experience. So a lot of you on this path probably feel that what you've once experienced, or the level of light quotient that you've held, was beyond, or was super reaching, or super, expanded in comparison to your current earthly experience. And in many ways, it feels contained, and it feels like you can't always do everything, you can't always express everything through your body, and at certain times you feel really restricted because of that, even in the sexuality realms, because sexuality is when we come together within our own alchemical nature, and then we share that alchemical nature with another, and this is where we truly get to practice what it means, the two becoming the one. Because first you do that as in the inner integration of polarities that create a dynamic sort of like tension, but it's not really a tension, it's that which is constantly propelling life to move forward. So in a way, it is a constant, sacred fire that constantly fueled, it's constantly being fueled, right? In that sense, there is this constant burning desire within you, because you do have this memory or an encodement within your light DNA. It's a state of divine remembrance. You've come here to constantly reinforce this human experience and to refuel it with this awareness. And because it doesn't always match the physical experience, it's because this is a process. And even when we say, well, the Hieros Gamos is, when you read about it, I'll read you some paragraphs too. We're going to do this in a fun way too, not just so archetypal and, explorative in that way. But nothing that is truly what it is, at its core. It's not just one thing. It's always comprising of the overall process. So it's the whole idea of Hieros Gamos as that sexual act which reenacts the reenactment, of course, of divinity, the god-goddess aspect, meeting and merging the polarities. But it's not just that, it's also the whole initiation, everything we as humans go through in order to prepare for that, to be able to hold the light quotient, to embody that. So for me, it's an overall experience. So I want to share with you what I've already shared on Instagram, which is that exactly on the day of Christmas, which was Christmas Day, I woke up from a really profound dream. And I actually had this for 2 nights in a row. But the last day was really when the experience was sealed, and I had a very vivid memory, because when we have these dreams, they're very much different, because these are actually happening. This is what's happening. It's just on another level of our dimensional kind of like tuning into. It's a different level of existence, but it's there. It's an experience, because you can feel it. You can feel the experience through the feelings, And when I woke up, I knew. At first I was like, what was that? Because I had many dreams like that of the nature of sacred sexuality, but never so intensely and profoundly that I had in this dream. And for people who don't understand this, they might go, oh, that what's she talking about here? What sexuality dreaming? That's just sexual dreams. No, it truly is not, because those of you who understand this path know that in the dream world, or the higher density experiences, are informing what eventually becomes a reality. So it's not just something you do like this. If you don't have an understanding of it, you don't have the right to judge that, because what is experienced is something like, it's a gift of life that no one can take away from you, and that's what truly counts. So when I share these things with you, it's more coming from the notion of perhaps evoking or triggering your memories and realizing you yourself certain things are not just dreams. These are initiations and preparations for the journey that, it's one aspect of it is physical, and there's an aspect that we call, well, this is our biological life, and we have this body and this form. And at this time, the more deeper you go into this union, you will see that everything gets into the body. It's all about how can you get into the body, because so many times we don't realize how disembodied we are, because we're so engaged with things, or we're hyperactive and doing things. We're not realize that in many of those cases we're truly disembodied in that moment. And whenever we are disembodied, we can't really tune into and translate the living life force. And that's one of the main reasons that I've developed the Tantric life force mastery course within the self-mastery program, because it's so important for us to realize that whenever we kind of tune out of that, it's like our lives get too it almost feels like you're not living your truest capacity in many cases. And we've all had these experiences. I had it too many times, and still sometimes I do. It's a feeling like you're not living your own life. And whenever you do, it's because you're somehow not translating life force in its optimum potential. And there's something wants to flow through you. And in a way, there's something restrictive within you, either as held within a pattern or a wrong belief that somehow was programmed into you and you've ascribed to it. And because of that, there's a feeling of stagnancy, and there's a feeling of sometimes even procrastination. And procrastination is actually a state when the body and the mind, as one unit, which what they should truly be, kind of like live in separation. So they're kind of mix and match, they're not in agreement. So one says, I need this, the other one says no. For example, someone tells you, this part of you tells you, I really want to rest. And one part of you says, no, but I have to do this and finish this. In the end, you don't either rest, you don't do that, because you're kind of stuck in between, because you don't allow these energies to truly blend and inform each other in what is truly the highest potential within you. So this mind-body complex, which truly is, when the more alike quotient you embody, you will see the more it feels like a one unit that informs you, and it's no longer mind versus the body, or body versus the mind. You exist within one illumined field of light. It's your light being that informs you. So this is why the life mastery path is so important for this process, because many people feel or think that's just going to automatically happen, and yet it doesn't. We have to build a certain amount of light quotient to transcend the level of existence in which we are separate mind, separate body. Sometimes we're more in the body, sometimes we go more towards the mind, and it's always leaning towards a certain part of us, but it's still a duality concept. Okay, so why am I talking about this first as a predisposition to this video? It's because it's so important to understand that first, the sacred alchemy takes place within you. And I remember when I was doing the self-mastery courses, the first course that embraced this was the sacred sexuality, and really mastering your own sacred sexuality, how you feel your inner creative being, because you don't know, if you don't own it, then how to share it when it comes a situation when you are offered a partnership within which you have an opportunity to create this sacred partnership path. So that's the reason why I'm talking about this first, because it's a prerequisite. It's something that we need to master within ourselves first, and a lot of people are not aware of it. So when you go online and you see now everyone talking about sacred or soul partnerships and soulmates and twin flames, uh, we don't realize what's the ultimate. There's this talking about two people coming together, and many times I see videos, or people do these readings. Okay, what's happening with the sacred feminine? What's happening with the sacred masculine? And it's always still in this remaining duality, like, okay, this is what the women are doing, this is what the men are doing, but that's not really what the sacred masculine and feminine is about. It's the energy through which you cultivate life through you as an existence into being. So if you ever did a reading based on that polarity, it's actually your inner polarities. And what is your feminine aspect currently experiencing? What is the masculine aspect within you currently experiencing? And how there is this pathway towards synthesis, the magician in tarot, the alchemy that takes place, the amalgamation process. Because when I see things like people saying, okay, the men are experiencing this, or the divine masculine counterparts, and then the feminine counterparts are experiencing this, you can't generalize things like that at all. There's absolutely no meaning in that, because each and every one of the initiates will have their own experience. You can't make a generalized reading for what the populace now is experiencing, well, as at large. You can tune into the essence self where you are, and feel into the path, what is currently for your highest good to to be initiated within, and how to respond with integration, which leads you more and more into integrity. So we can't really approach this path as in, okay, I'm doing this for myself, and outside of me, there must be someone else, who is going through this and that. And how do I find them? Or how do I get to them? How do I bring them to my life? Because again, that's still based on separation. So I always tell you that the path of true illumined union is a complete acceptance and a complete amalgamation of masculine and feminine forces of creation within you. Because when that is complete, whatever takes place outside of you will be a representation of that sacred marriage which you have achieved. So in my dream, I wish to tell you, it was so beautiful, because even though I had dreams like this before, the experience this time was so profound. It was just so deep, because I could literally feel with my whole body, with my whole, it's like that arousal state. What truly arousal is, people don't understand, so they waste this energy, because they feel, when they're feeling the sense of arousal, they need to quickly dispose of it, and like, I need to put the steam off. So that's why the means of lower sexuality were created as a distraction and disorientation for many humans who are not aware. And I'm going to read you something that really confirms this, from something I found online about this topic. And it's really beautiful, because that's just how it is. So instead of engaging with our illumined presence, we are constantly disengaging. And it's until a soul is ripe and mature enough to understand this, and to really start embracing every bit of aspect within themselves. Everything you do, bring it back to you. People are like, how do I do this? Well, it's much easier, right, to talk about someone outside of you as this is your match, that's your perfect partner, that's your twin flame, and then you become addicted to that path about something existing outside of you, instead of truly bringing that as a light sustenance, because you do need to create a certain light code, or light quotient embodiment, for you to be ready for that to take place within the two who will come together, because they have done that within themselves. And that was always my message of Illumined Union, which many people would rather not take, because it's more challenging, because you have to address and face everything. And like I've said, sometimes you feel, wow, I've integrated this, I've done so much, and a new wave comes, and you're like, how is that possible? I thought it was doing much better. But this is not about better or worse. This is about going so deep that, of course, sometimes you come, we go steps and steps, because there is a spiral of life unfolding us through towards the upper heavens, which means the higher realms of our existence, where we always exist. It's a coexistence. And then it's also the descending spiral, which moves us into the realms of that which is the below. That is what that saying means, as above so below. So to bring that illumination into through the descending spiral just as well. And a lot of people are perceiving that twin flame path as only the ascending spiral, but truly it is not. Illumined union is the ascending spiral merging and becoming the descending spiral of light, in order to illuminate and to bring light and life, because light is the essence of life, into where it needs to go through divine service. By simply letting go and dissolving all perceptions of separation and duality. So in my dream, I could really feel that sense of arousal. And arousal is, when approached through higher tantric understanding, which is the mastery of life force, it's something you will constantly build up and expand as much as you can. So in tantric sexuality, you don't just, ooh, I feel this arousal, release, over. You actually potentialize that, because you use the masculine force of electricity and feminine of magnetism, and you use that force to kind of like expand. In the end, the sexual, you perceive it as tension, but in tantric modality or a way of life, because truly it is a way of life, it's a constant expansion of that arousal, which will potentialize your magnetic nature, so that the electric nature can charge through and create life, because they do need, if you want more electricity, you have to expand the space, right? Make it so that the force coming through will be able to equalize, so that it's not, too much electricity. What happens, that, right? We all do know that. So this seen as a journey, just as well as it is what we would call a reenactment of that, it's both. And that's why everything we ever did or experienced on this path of union was not of union, because many times we thought, I'm doing this and that, well, I'm not focusing on this love, I should be focusing more on that. It's something that guides you to kind of like go into the light, then bring that through the descending spiral. But it's to equalize. In the end, it's always to bring that light of our Christed nature into our physical bodies, so that divinity comes into biology, into our physical form. So in my dream, I could just feel that potency, and it was rising, and it was so intense. And it was just a beautiful dream, and I didn't want to wake up from it, because I really knew what it was. And when I woke up, the feeling remained within me, or with me. So that potentiality, and that's how it's a real experience. It's not just a dream, because when we're processing a lot of things, a lot of it is mental, a lot of it is dealing with subconscious elements that influence our life reality. And sometimes it's also dreams when you go into higher planes or guidance dreams. It's many versions. But when it's actually a living dream, means that there was life force present. It wasn't just a mental kind of reaction. It was a chemical journey. You just experienced it on a higher realm. And it is, in a way, therefore, because you do also present on earth. So if there was such a question within someone, let's say someone has this dream and they ask, well, would that experience remain only in the higher realms? Why not on earth? Well, because it is there, and you had an experience in the higher realms, because once you do, it means you're already engaging with it. It's just it hasn't manifested on earth. But you can engage in something, because when you understand soul and how souls go through different initiations, you can experience something in spirit if the soul hasn't really gone through that initiation, which means if there is a lack of that experience in the physical sense, also means that you haven't had that initiation as a soul. But when you do feel that constantly, you just hadn't had the ultimate mirror, perhaps, it means, the time hasn't come yet for that merging process in the physical. But because you're having an experience, let's say on other realms, it's there. Your soul is already experiencing all of this. That's my message. So I first want to read you something I found online about this, and it's really beautifully written. And then I'll read you a short channel paragraph which I wrote. So perhaps for those of you who are not so aware, or those of you who maybe need just little pieces of that to kind of fall into place, so you can assist yourself through this. So in this Ascension glossary online, it said that the sacred marriage, that is a message I'm reading. So the sacred marriage, or the Hieros Gamos, is the wedded garment of God, wearing the white robes of the One. Hieros Gamos refers to the risen Christos as the embodiment of the inner hierogamic union between the human being and the divine. So ultimately, that's what it means. The Hieros Gamos is the full resurrection of the body to the eternal light of Christos, cosmic Christ consciousness, and the body's return to energetic balance, neutral in the unity field or 0 point. The being is one with God, and the Christos body is glorified in its perfection as representative of God's image. In Hieros Gamos couplings, the genetic equal of the monad unites with its counterpart to embody the sacred marriage of Christic equals, to merge into one spiritual body to hold the spirits of Christ. So you see, as above, so below. A Christic male and a Christic female unite in a Hieros Gamos, or rod and staff, union as the Christos Sophia, to be of service within God's eternal light divine plan to correct the Sophianic body and to restore liberation of ascension upon the earth. So it's actually bringing the atonement for the new human, for the Christed human, through their own representation of what they experience in their Hieros Gamos. So Hieros Gamos is the embodiment of the new cosmic ray frequencies of Mother Arc Aquamarine and Father Arc Emerald Green hues and their DNA lens being introduced to this universe. These frequency colors represent the Aurora body guardian consciousness of the united Christic forms embodied in the future sovereignty timeline of the interdimensional resonator. I'm not so sure of these terms, but okay. So one last thing I want to read here about this perfect balance within the Hierogamic union. And it says, men and women of this earth, you are both genders and influenced by these forces and archetypes. By seeking inner balance through the perfect union made between the masculine and feminine forces, the consciousness is made into the image of God through the Hierogamic union of the inner Christos Sophia. This is represented in the spiritual alchemy of unified polarities, the Hierogamic union of a god and goddess, a perfected being, also called the Immaculate Conception design. The perfect balance and union between masculine and feminine principles united as one is our true destiny. When we enter the sexual act, we mimic that process in varying degrees of consciousness. We enter into the sacred temple, the union of polarities, to form unity. Because we are ignorant and subjected to the sexual misery programming on the earth, we are reduced to some form of the false king of tyranny, the distorted male, and the princess code, the female, archetypes of mind control. And that's very much present on our planet. Of course, also not just through pornography, but also many other examples. So thus we corrupt this inner balance of perfection with our lust, jealousy, pride, arrogance, selfishness, animal desire, or the houses of ego. And when we think with the negative ego mind, we allow the imposter spirit to dwell inside of us, and we do not have a clean, pure temple to commune with divine forces. Our inner temple is corrupted and made into a brothel. So I love the writing. The NAA, I don't know what that stands for, probably the forces of manipulation, have set up systems where the men and women of earth are reduced to prostitutes. Prostitutes for money, for sex, for material things, for power and control. So anytime you kind of like devour your own values in exchange for something you gain outside of you, and at the lack of the integrity, you become that. It's written here. It's not like you become it in the form of your immaculate self, but on earth you don't have that experience as the above so below. So you constantly kind of you're in this vicious cycle of recycling of this, giving of the power away to these mind control systems. So through all of these, we're tricked into selling our soul. The men and women of this earth are the only power that can stop this deception from continuing, and it starts with each one of us truly loving each other. Remember, I've just read somewhere that sex or sexuality without love is truly dangerous, and that's what actually got us or brought us AIDS, the virus and the disease at those times, because so many people were doing that unconsciously. So we have now a unique opportunity available to us to positively impact the future timelines of Earth as we strive to heal, balance, and unify the gender principles in ourselves and humanity at this time. So you see, even this perception of there's a person outside of you and they are your match and you have to do something to align with them so they will be able to exist in your life, it's distorted because you're constantly conditioning yourself the way you need to be or the level you need to achieve within you so this partnership can take place physically. That's what a lot of people on the so-called twin path do, and they perceive constantly this as them and the other. But this path of Illumined union is truly not of you and the other. It's you and another as one. And that means total self-acceptance, not just you in your glorified soulful state, but embracing every speck of your humanity, of everything you perhaps thought you don't like about yourself. It requires this non-controlled approach to true love that you first have towards yourself, and understanding of your embodiment, why you are here, even when you perhaps don't have a clue why you're here, but you still acknowledge through complete trust into life force and the plan of spirit, which is that divine plan of immaculate conception for you. And these couplings that are here as the first pioneers for that mission, which is, like it said in the writing, it's the destiny of all eventually. They have to go through this embodiment, because they already, in a way, they do have an understanding of it. So for them, it's easier because they understand that, and yet it's not easier because they have a huge responsibility within their blueprint. So that responsibility, remember, is never towards the others, because that's still based on separation. It's the responsibility to the whole, because your gift of life came from the whole. You embodied from the whole. You said, I'm going to be doing this service, I'm going to be doing this mission, but not for anyone else, not even for myself. It's just the whole. I'm an aspect of the whole that does this, because that aspect has self-realized and wants to share this as a gift of life with all in that whole. So I want to read you something that I wrote about the Hieros Gamos. And remember, in the previous video, I think I read you the channel message of the essence level form of union as the Illumined union. And if I haven't, please let me know, but I think I did. So Hieros Gamos represents the embodiment of divine love that has fully become flesh. This means that the essence level self has fully descended into form, firstly through each individual itself, and secondly through their amalgamated union. In this way, the two seeming counterparts co-create a sacred space and physical alchemy through sacred sexuality, in which they are no longer perceived as even counterparts, but one whole self. For this to be truly reenacted, mimicking the divine nature of being, each individual must first fully understand and embody the ascended light body Merkaba, light quotient, that's required for this holy union and matrimony as a prerequisite. So this is something you can't just have with anyone. That's why people who know they're in this path, they kind of make a vow of celibacy. This doesn't mean they're a Puritanist. That means that they already, in a way, know their life partner because they know themselves. So they feel this being because they work on feeling their being at the core essence level. So they don't have any need to engage sexually, which that is, in a way, stimulating, coming to something because you need it. You have to apply that externally because you feel you need something. And until that is required, you will be perhaps exchanging energy physically, sexually, emotionally with other people, until the level within your Illumined union path is reached when that is no longer required. So when you're still working on, perhaps, as volunteer souls, we take on imprints, and when that work of imprints requires the mirroring of the other, of another that exists outside of you but is still, united within the whole through all as us, when that is still required, it will happen. So people will come into your life for that reason. They will be bringing you gifts of, slowly integrating that as a process. So there's no judgment in that. That doesn't mean you're not with your partner, or you're not aligned with your core creation self, or, you're not walking your truest righteous path. It simply means that that life force is gifting you that because it's still a requirement for you. And if you want to understand more how to walk this path of integration of union through these relationships that come as offerings, because that is a path of relationship, I have a Cosmic Beloved course that teaches exactly that, how through these divine archetypes that we experience through those relationships, we actually get deeper and deeper into this union. So when you come at the state when that is no longer required, I will tell you this, and it's from my own experience, people will fall away. The opposite gender, because as physical humans we still have gender expressions, that will somehow withdraw from you because you've embodied the wholeness of yourself to the degree where that, as external mirror from the other that is not the counterpart in that expression, will be coming into your life anymore. So suddenly these more that feel more like karmic connections that bring you, doesn't mean you have karma, that just means that the level of the relationship is meant to kind of like purify the vessel, purify those, bring those imprints to the surface so we can deal with them once and for all, if this is something we have agreed to do. And volunteer souls who come here, we don't just come here to observe the planet, we come here to actually do the work. So we take on these patterns of distortion within creation that are not based on immaculate conception, and we take them and we work them out, and we do that within ourselves. So when we unify with someone, it will never truly be a whole union, but you unify with them partially until enough of this light quotient is gathered so you come into your own Hieros Gamos first. In that point, you will lose a sense of interest in any sexual engagement that does not kind of like solidify your own sexual nature, which is probably, for those of you on this path, it's tantric. It's not coming through the, like we've read here in this online description. It's not based on sexual programming that come from the outside, and a lot of these beliefs, when you go, even online, people are like, oh, you need to have, there's these articles, you need to be sexually active at this age, this is what it means. And it's so much programming, and it puts pressure onto people because they believe they need to be a certain way to fulfill the status quo, to live within a status quo. But when you are within your own illumined union, you recognize yourself. You are your divine marriage partner, and therefore you know the counterpart because you know yourself. There is no other way to know the counterpart than to know the self. And the counterpart is only the level of experience we have on earth, because earth, there's polarization. Otherwise you can't have matter in the way we do, forms of life here on earth. So on earth, this is how we, at the most not just archetypally, but at the most profound feeling level, we experience this union is by this act of Hieros Gamos that, on the other hand, is not just a sexual act. So there's so much more behind this, and there's so much I could share, and I will work on my book on Illumined unions starting next year. But there's just so much. And when you feel this disengagement and you feel not a need, that doesn't mean you're not sexual, but you experience this now as an alchemy within you, and it's enough. And before you do that, you have to allow yourself the experience, because it's almost like saying you're there, but you're not, because the light quotient of that hasn't come full circle, which means experiences of people coming into your life will still be present. So take that as a journey. If you're still on the wandering path, and people are trying to be Puritanist in a wrong way. This is not about that. This is about being loyal to the path that you ascribe to walking through when you agreed that you will live in divine union here on earth, and that you have to go through certain things even when it's going to be difficult and challenging, and you will be experiencing things a lot of times alone. And when there's a feeling sometimes, for those of us who've been alone for so long, that we needed, like you say sometimes to yourself, oh, I need this masculine energy present in my life, or feminine energy, because I always have to deal with these things. But you deal with the things that you perceive are of opposite gender, or opposite, like women are not supposed to do these kind of works, or men are not supposed to do these things, that's for women, or oh, that's just for men. These are programs. And when you walk this path alone, truly only that way you can develop the non-programmed level of functioning, which is you can be or do anything. There is no role descriptions here, because we have both male and female energy, or masculine feminine polarities within us. And in that equilibrium, in that ecstatic state, when you can take and use that in alchemy, whatever you're approaching or dealing with in physical life. And physical life is the stage where that unfolds. It's not walking away or running into this cave somewhere and putting your head in the hole and not observing what's happening in the reality. This is the test ground. This is the ground of initiation here on earth, and that's how we do things physically. So the very nature of sexuality was so misinterpreted, was so misunderstood. But why is it so important for union? And why Hieros Gamos in many ancient traditions, even in pagan cultures, you have movie The Mists of Avalon, and they were wearing these masks. The men had an elk mask. I don't know what the woman had, but they actually truly reenacted that as they were the deities, as they went into the essence of that energy. So, when you do that within yourself, you will have to internally alchemize it. But when the two beings, as physical beings, come together, it's almost like the yin and the yang, right? The woman is a woman, but she has the seed of the masculine energy, and vice versa. So it will invite you to kind of step aside from all that you felt, okay, now I needed to do this alone. but then again, you will have to know which side of the polarity you're on in order for that to physically reenact. But there is a prerequisite that we need as internal dynamics, because we have to recognize which of these energies acts in a certain way in creation. So there is no other way. So Hieros Gamos is not only a reenactment of a sexual act, but rather a complete melding together of polarized opposites as true divine counterparts that have first been integrated as perfect, whole and complete within each individual. That is why Hieros Gamos cannot be created by simply anyone or with anyone, but only between two individuals who have fully achieved the sacred marriage as divinity within the human biology, within themselves, so that their bodies become not only pure conduits or vessels for the life force of spirit, but also the embodiments of light quotient, which expresses the fullness and completion of immaculate conception. Such couplings are therefore very rare and a gift to all creation as of now, with the seed of life potential which they carry within their Illumined union blueprint. So like I said, you can't have that just with anyone, and when you're feeling like you need it, you haven't achieved that sacred marriage within yourself first. Because when you truly do, the need to be with someone just in order to be with someone, it dissolves. Because it's in my own words, I always say the ultimate or nothing at all, nothing else exists, because that's how the union feels within you. And the need to be distracted with all that comes, it's almost like it goes away, because you don't recognize the self in full mirror in that which is sometimes presented to you. And people are often seeking, and people are often misinterpreting, and many times people are imposing themselves on others as well. That's very popular, I've noticed, in the New Age circles. Even I myself have many times experienced this, when people come to you and they're telling you, oh, I think you are in relation to me in this coupling and twin flame. And it's like, no, don't do that. It's very you're imposing on on the being in a way that is a violation. Because when the coming together is a true lumen union, it's such a natural coming together that none of the beings involved have to ask themselves the question, who is who in relation to each other. It's a process of just steps and stages, and eventually it's like, it's like, oh, hello. It's very simple, and yet it's complex in understanding. But the simplicity of understanding helps us to embrace the complexity of how this is being reenacted here on Earth and the many initiations we go through. So I hope for some of you that was helpful. And I also want to read you from the Pleiadian House of Initiations. That's the book I'm really recommending at this time for anyone truly to read, because it's just so good. It's a very simple book. It's only 100 pages or so. And it's called A Journey Through the Rooms of the Wisdom Keepers. And it's from Mary T. Bevan. Bevan? I don't know. Sorry. But this book has in it, in such simple writing, such a deep expression of what truly means to be Christed, what truly means to embrace this path of complete union. And I will read you some of the paragraphs in the next video, in the last year update. But I want to read you something that really comes here as an alignment with this topic. And one of the things is about our initiations and how they come. And it says, at times these lessons come to us in gentle touch, and other times they come like a cuff from a mother bear. Love is stronger than death, and as strong as it needs to be to bring the beloved to consciousness. It brings the beloved out of the clutches of death and into greater and more abundant life in whatever way is necessary. For at the core, it is our own love that loves us more deeply and more steadfastly than any other love could. The great love abides in us and among us and is Emmanuel. This is the promise of ages, a promise that we will all come home to the love that we are. So the Emmanuel here is embraced as that Christ, that divine child within us, and the gift to life through that union. In love and surrender, we were brushed clean of any clinging desires and glamour about the outcome of the stories, because, she and the counterpart in that archetypal expression, the inner realm experience, they went through this great purging and the union. So they belong now to the eternal experience of the all. So that's when there is no my story, right? My twin flame, my this and that. It's like a total dissolution of this egoic consciousness. So something of us, of me, had become eternal in the all, and the one was beginning to take flesh in this mortal frame. I love that. So no longer would we stay physically in touch all the times, because they went through the spiral, right? And as we had been, but each of us would be completing the work of the other in the all, and through that they're always connected. We were in fact no longer male or female, nor young or old, but we live now in the Christ, the anointed one who had been sent. So this inexhaustible fountain, the fountain of love and life, it means that while you're still in your mortal body, living an ordinary or extraordinary life on earth, you become aware from time to time of the presence you hold in that other dimension that seems to be outside of time and space. And our role as keepers of this higher consciousness is to bring more and that fuel into the sacred fire of earth. So from the sacred waters of all life, bring it into the fusion and amalgamation with the earthly consciousness and, of course, humanity. So one knows that the spirit of all life has become available and abundant in the world, and one also feels sure that this is a new experience overtaking the whole world, and that soon all people will be able to share in this bubbling flow. Soon enough, however, we start making plans for God in the way we think it should happen. That way always means another learning time is near. So this is about more like true surrender, that the ultimate, the all already knows what is of that highest expression. I think that's it for this. I will read more beautiful chapters from this book in the next video, the final summary of this year, because we're slowly moving into a closure. And I hope you like this video. There's a whole playlist of divine union and the twin soul consciousness, and there is also a self-mastery course called the Mastering Polarity and the Twin Soul, as well as the Cosmic Beloved. It's the initiations you go through different relationships in your life, and how to integrate those archetypes so that eventually you come into a full cosmic union within yourself. So enjoy yourself, have a beautiful time, as always, with so much love, wisdom, and power. And if you want to help the channel, if you want to support my channel, you can go to Patreon, or you can donate on my page. So there will be more beautiful informed videos like this, as always, with so much gratitude. Thank you for being the light of illumination and understanding and the wisdom and the heart of the one here on this planet. I love you all. Bye-bye.